Hi everyone, thanks for joining in on this video today, tuning into the Zenwara channel. So today we're going to talk about a new technology which I've seen for the future. And it's a new technology that essentially will address climate change, right? To resolve climate change, global warming, and all these issues that we're having because of emissions, specifically of our industry and of cars and different things like that. So emissions that go into the atmosphere basically and increase global warming, right? And different phenomena. So global warming is a very complex issue, and I won't get into all the details about that and the science behind it. You can look that up on Google if that's something that interests you, or online or in articles. But what I will talk about today is a new technology that'll be developed in the future, or hopefully developed, if we pursue the development of this technology, which will essentially resolve global warming. Okay, so global warming is one of the major issues that's affecting our generation and future generations that are coming after us. And it's our responsibility to address that and to start putting in place the measures so that we can preserve our way of life on this planet, right? And this does apply for any other species that are having these types of similar issues as well. So what is the technology? It's called the Litmus field. Okay, so what is the Litmus field? This is a technology that'll be developed. There's the possibility that'll be developed by a scientist that is somewhat advanced in age with his assistant. But there's the potential that it could be developed by someone else as well. Okay, so what is the Litmus field? Okay, so the idea here is that emissions, are usually sent out through an exhaust pipe, right, or a chimney or something like that, right? Emissions, right? So, the first thing we can think about is let's put a filter, right? So that's the first thing we should develop, to address these issues immediately, to put in place filters to filter these emissions so that they are less harmful once they go into the environment, right? And this applies for anything that's essentially causing pollution. Okay, so what we're talking about here is an end to pollution. Okay, so we have the pollution, and we're talking about first thing we can do is develop filters to put on these chimneys, on these exhausts, on anything to filter that pollution, to essentially neutralize it before it goes out into the atmosphere. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, on this idea of developing filters, what we want to develop is we want to develop a perfect filter that can be applied to all emission devices. Okay, and that'll essentially stop emissions from all our devices, all our industry, and all this, on the planet. Okay, so what is the Litmus field? The Litmus field, and I'm going to be giving information on the Litmus field that hopefully will help in its development. Okay, so what is the Litmus field? It's the solution to pollution. Okay, and what is it essentially? Okay, so picture the pipe, okay, the emissions pipe, okay, and what you have is you have a fan within the pipe system that pushes the emissions, okay, with a fan that pushes the emissions so they don't just free go up. For example, they can go into a specific direction, pushes the emissions, okay, into the filter. Okay, and what is the Litmus field? Okay, what is the Litmus field? It's essentially a blue field. Okay, so when you're visualizing it, visualize a filter that you install on the end of the pipe, on the end of the emissions pipe, horizontally. Okay, not vertically, horizontally. We would be putting the pipes. Okay, and there's a fan that pushes the emissions to that filter, or through that filter, if you want to see it that way. What the filter is, okay, imagine a ring, okay, a ring that fits around the pipe, okay, that you can install and remove, and when it's damaged or needs maintenance, you can just remove it for a new Litmus field unit. And the Litmus field is a field, the blue field, okay, and that's one of the keys to developing it. It's a visual, you actually see the visual blue field. Okay, so you have that ring around the pipe that you install that generates a blue field in the opening of that filter. Okay, and what is the blue field? The blue field is and here is the name Litmus field. Okay, and that's one of the key words to understand this technology. Okay, what gives it its blue color? And if you look at the word Litmus, we know there's a definition for what gives the blue color. Okay, so I invite you to think about this if you're attempting to develop this technology. Okay, so what is it? It's a blue field. okay, that essentially is generated by this ring around the field. Okay, and this technology will propel humanity forward as well in our understanding of technology. Okay, once we develop it. But what it does is the emissions. Okay, so think about the smog, the smoke, the emissions that's being blown, goes into the vapor, if you want to see it that way as well, goes into the Litmus field, passes through the Litmus field, and on the other side, just be what emerges from the other side, pure water. Okay, so with a full filtering of all the particles and all the pollution that went through the Litmus field. What comes out on the other side? Water. So it transforms anything that goes through it into water. Any emissions that go into it into water. Okay, that's the Litmus field. Okay, remember it's a blue field. Okay, and that's the filter. Okay, now an initial development of this technology may develop, instead of water coming out on the other side through the field, it's going to be ice. Okay, and that clue helps you discover this technology as well. So an initial technology, it would be ice that comes out. However, we know that that could cause an accumulation essentially around that area, right? You know, which could hamper emissions and is not practical. So by tuning this technology, instead of ice coming out on the other side, it's water that'll come out on the other side. Okay, so I invite you to develop this technology. This is a technology that can solve global warming. It's called the Litmus field. Once again, a blue field that is created by this ring around the opening of any filter we want to install it on. Okay, and what are we going to see once we develop the Litmus field? Okay, likely we're going to see industry developing for the adaptation of all existing devices to be so the Litmus field can be put on all emitting devices. Okay, so what we would likely see is, we would see a certain time period, adjustment period, by which, either the governments or anyone issues that by this time all devices must be fitted with a Litmus field. So we have a very large industry that'll develop around the Litmus field as well. And through the development of the Litmus field technology, we'll also develop other technologies that'll advance our understanding of technology as well. So that is the solution to pollution, the Litmus field. Okay, it's a field that literally purifies, okay, all emissions that go through it and transfer them into pure water, okay, in its finalized form. Okay, so this is a little bit my 2023 gift to everybody. Okay, basically I'm telling you what needs to be developed here as far as the technology. Okay, and what needs to be done in the meantime. We need to put filters on everything that emits the emissions, right? There needs to be a development of filters, but with the end goal of developing the Litmus field. Remember that blue field, and remember the key is in the word Litmus field. What gives it its blue color, right? And that field essentially can be able to be installed on all our devices all over the planet that have emissions, right? That do emissions. And eventually, once we have that installed on all devices, we can neutralize pollution emissions on our planet and solve that major issue that's been plaguing us in a sense. Okay, so a priority for us, the development of the Litmus field. Okay, I'm not a scientist. Okay, I'm not going to be the one developing that technology, but I can help guide you in the understanding of how that technology works. Right? What are the different stages? What it looks like. How it works. Right? So that someone who is a technology person, a tech guy, if you want to call him that way or her that way, can develop this technology. And very important, once this development of this technology has been made, it's going to be important to share this technology with everybody freely, not to hide this technology. Okay, that's not the purpose. The purpose of this technology is to end pollution on this planet. Okay, so it needs to be shared freely, and as it's shared freely, it'll also be further advanced by different individuals. Okay, that's one of the purposes of sharing the information as well, and this will lead to other potential very important discoveries and technologies for species, which will help us tackle the challenges of the future. Okay, so the Litmus field. Okay, once again, it's a blue field emitted by a ring that fits on the pipe of the emissions. Okay, the blue field that's emitted, and any emissions that pass through it, any vapors from pollution are transferred to water, and it's just water, pure water, that comes out on the other side. So I leave it up to you to develop this technology if you choose to pursue that, and I highly recommend it as it is a technology that is essential and critical for us advancing to the next stage of sustainability on our planets. Okay, thanks very much for listening.